Ready? There we go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So lovely to see people actually in person, not just that big anymore. So in a few moments, the event will formally be starting. But what I'd like to do is just to, really for the benefit of the people in the room, explain what's going on, and also really just to thank you for being here. So first, I think I need to tell you that, as you probably know, this is a blended event. In total, over the next 3 days, there's some 550 people will be participating in this event in one way or another. And those people will be from around the globe. And what we'll also have is a lot of the material that's been shared will be watched on demand after the event itself. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Servitization Live. We are delighted that you've been able to join us, either online or in person at today's event. My name is Tim Baines. I'm a professor within the Aston Business School, and it'll be my pleasure to take you through the program over the next 3 days. What I'd like to do, first of all, though, before we get started, is just to give you a few words of introduction as background to Servitization Live. Why are we here today? Why Servitization? I'd like to open proceedings by just really giving you a summary about the event, starting with explaining our motivation. If we think about the dominant paradigm within manufacturing, the paradigm is very much about making things, moving things. It's all about the product. It's all about production. It's all about factories. It's about supply chain, the product, making it and moving it. All too often, people inside manufacturing, executives inside manufacturing, lose sight of the fact that value is only created for customers when the product is actually used, when the train moves, when the car is driven, when the excavator digs a hole, when the customer's actually using it. Manufacturers have an opportunity to have a share of the value that is created as the product is used and to be richly rewarded as the outcomes that that product achieves are realized by the customer. Servitization is about the change in mindset. It's about this idea that it's not about letting go of products and production, but rather embracing products, production, and changing the mindset around the use of the product when it's within the customer's operations. Today's event is very much about helping industries to accelerate their adoption of servitization. The opportunities of servitization are compelling. They're compelling for both societies, for business, and for economies. Our ambition at Aston is to accelerate this adoption, and to do so, what we've actually done is create a Servitization Live. Servitization Live is targeted at industry, it's targeted at business leaders, and business leaders are looking to explore and engage in the adoption of servitization within inside their own organizations. When we created Servitization Live, we very much wanted to create a neutral platform, a platform where people could openly discuss and debate the advances around services. We wanted to bring servitization alive. We wanted to bring it beyond the presentations. We wanted to make it something where people could come along and actually see it working in practice. We are very grateful for the businesses which are supporting us both in setting up this event and being here today with the exhibits around the room, helping us to show and demonstrate what servitization can actually look like in action. And what we found over the last year or so is this whole idea of Servitization Live has grown beyond simply an event, but to be a stream of activities which are really focused at pushing the ideas of servitization out to the business community. So today's event is a blended event. It's an event that is both an online event and an in-person event. In total, there are around 550 people actually joining the event in one way or another over the next 3 days, and many more people will be watching on demand over the forthcoming months. There's one or two basic housekeeping rules that I'd like just to take you through about managing this online and in-person process. First of all, we'd like to encourage people to ask questions. We'd like to encourage the online audience and the audience in the room to ask the questions. If people in the room have questions, when we get to those points in the program where we open the floor for questions, please just raise your hand and we'll come to you and you can pose your question. Just mention your name and your organization and we'll take the question. So at some point we will then open up the Q&A session to those people online. And those people online, again, we will ask them to turn their microphone on. We will turn the microphone on for them. We will actually also turn the picture on, and you will see them posing their questions actually on the main screen behind me. So we'd like to encourage all people to take part, whether you're online or actually in person in the audience. What to expect over the next couple of days? Well, in designing the event, what we were very much mindful of was that there's a whole platform of global challenges facing us all, facing society, and we believe that servitization is something very positive to say against each of those global challenges, whether it's about sustainability, whether it's about the aging society. We wanted to actually look at how servitization could help industry, society, and economies actually respond to that. And so we've created an event which really embraces that agenda. What we've got is 3 levels, 3 days, each day covering something slightly different. Today, we're going to focus on all industry as a service. It's this idea that let's understand what's happening in the world of industry around the globe in terms of servitization. Tomorrow, we're going to focus more upon healthy aging, healthy aging and climate change and food security, and how servitization can help with those very critical agenda items. And then on day 3, we're going to really open up, demonstrate how servitization can be applied to organizations, whether they're big or small. And we're going to focus the 3rd day very much on the smaller businesses, which sometimes get overlooked in the servitization conversations. So in designing the event, we were very mindful of these challenges. And when you look at the agenda, we'll be going through each of these challenges in some detail. But we're going to start with looking at really what is happening in servitization around the world. Before I actually do start, though, forgive me, I'm just going to take a technical break because I've got a problem with this screen still. It's flashing on and off. Can I get the screen changed or just adjusted? Okay. So just bear with us a moment, ladies and gentlemen, just while we just sort this screen out. Okay. While this small technical hitch is being addressed, can I just invite my colleague Ian McKechnie to join me on stage? Let me just talk you through this idea about the International Roundup of Servitization. Where we were is, when we think about servitization, we're very much trying to understand what's happening around the world, which are the leading companies, who's doing this, which are the exemplars, and why are they doing it? How is servitization being embraced, and how is it expanding in different regions? So one of the things that we learned by using digital is that we could actually have an event like this and open up the opportunity for commentators around the world to actually have an input to the event and to actually tell us live what is happening in their particular region. And so we identified a group of international experts in different regions of the world, and for each expert, we set a series of questions. We asked them to comment upon what is happening in terms of the adoption of servitization in their region or country. We also asked them to comment on what is driving the change, why is it actually happening, on which industrial sectors are leading and which are actually following, on which businesses are exemplars and what they are doing. That was the agenda item, and what we have got now is a series of commentators from Europe and from North America and from Asia, all giving us their own insights into what's actually happening. The first person I would like to welcome to give their insights is a friend and colleague, Heiko Gebauer. Heiko is a leader in the research on servitization. He's been working in this field for the past 20 years. He's an international expert. Heiko is actually based in Germany. And so what I'd like to do is open up and say, welcome, Heiko.
Hello, welcome.
Good to hear you. We can both hear you and we can see you. So this is the first, you're the first on stage. Please tell us what's happening with servitization in Germany, within German industry.
Yes, thanks for the introduction and also for the opportunity to get some thoughts from a German perspective into the discussion. And I'm very happy also to present this in this audience, full of, let's say, academics, but also of practitioners who do this in their daily job, trying to get companies on their way towards services and supporting them in their servitization journey. What we recognize in Germany right now, first of all, we see the trend that actually coming back to the old concept of servitization and considering servitization as something bigger. So servitization is not just like getting from products to services. So servitization is about working with data, working with information, working with knowledge. Today, you can call that the data economy, data as the new oil, or data as a very valuable asset. So I think in servitization, we have to be very open to also implement this kind of new logics. And I think servitization is a very good umbrella to take up these kind of ideas. Or a similar idea would be around digital. So services on information technologies. Today, you can call it the digital platforms, the Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And I think, again, servitization is a very good way of understanding how we can utilize these technologies, how we can create customer value with that, and how we can monetize it. So, and that also part of this understanding that servitization is much broader is actually that servitization is about understanding the boundary between what is the customer doing themselves itself, or what kind of services are we providing to the customer. You can call it value and use, joint value creation, and something like that. So I think what we now understand in Germany, that actually servitization is a much broader concept. It could be an umbrella to link other topics, interlink different kind of topics from digital platforms, data economy, and being more customer centric. A second trend, which we actually see now also in the way with kind of which kind of industry are currently working, is that we shouldn't make the mistake in servitization research to think servitization just about having better services. What we need now is understanding, first of all, we need better products. So we need products that are more sustainable, more energy efficient, less carbon dioxide emissions. So I think we don't need combustion engines, we need electric vehicles. We don't need heating systems burning gas, we need heating system relying on green hydrogen. We don't need dump houses wasting energy, but we need smart houses generating energy and creating a more energy efficient living. So we need better products first. And I think servitization research is the best way to understand how we get this kind of better products faster into the market, how we can create models as a service, services around to make a very smooth and rapid take up of these better products into the market. And servitization will become key success factor for these new products and better products. And I think a lot of our servitization research is now looking into these kind of new industries about green hydrogen, about electric mobility, more energy efficient living, and so on. Because, and hopefully maybe we will meet each other again in 2050 if we would still have a kind of lively planet at that time, joining the Spring Servitization Conference, with not being too hot and too dry in Birmingham. I think we need to go into that direction, better and more sustainable products. Third trend, which we actually see right now, is initially we had this assumption, servitization is just the same thing as Industry 4.0. It's the same thing as IoT. It's the same thing as digitalization. It's just a different way to express it. What we now recognize is actually these are technologies. These are technology visions. Everything is connected. Products are talking to us. Products are communicating, saying how they are doing, how they are used, how they feel, and so on. And servitization is actually the vehicle to monetize these different technologies, how to make models around how to sell technical features, how to monetize this kind of large investment into digital platforms and digital technologies. And based on that, servitization might lead to a kind of change from non-recurring to more recurring business models that at the end might be even more robust to economic crises like we have right now. And then so this kind of trend we are seeing, that servitization becomes for us a kind of sticky glue to bring together topics from a technology perspective, like IoT, like machine learning, artificial intelligence, with the new idea of moving towards a subscription economy where you subscribe to these kind of services, these kind of technologies are actually offering. And the last trend that we also see right now is that servitization is much more than actually research. So I think I did this now for 20, 25 years, with some things contributing. And we see a lot of academic progress. If you take the number of articles, I'm always impressed, the number of citations, the number of different scholars working in the field, and from different countries as well. I think if I would have gone back 25 years ago and we would have met as servitization researchers, we could have met in a very tiny room and still keeping the distance of 1.5 meters with COVID-19, because there were so few people actually working on the topic. And it's nice to see so many people taking it up. But we also have to be careful in saying how many companies are taking it up, because at the end, servitization is much more about the practitioners who get these things actually done. And I'm very happy always to learn with them and to understand, okay, how they can take the ball and catch the ball, and now it's on their hand to make these things actually happening. So everything as a service means also everybody needs to be in service, and every practitioner in that case. And if you take this seriously by getting more people, more companies involved, I think we as researchers can have a kind of nice learning with them. And also together we can just follow up on the 3 trends I just mentioned, saying, no, together we can make servitization a bigger umbrella, a bigger thing, linking it to different kind of topics like data economy, platform economy, and something like that. Together we can think about using servitization to get these better products into the markets, better products that makes our planet more sustainable. And also that at the end, we can link new technologies to new issues like subscription economy through servitization concepts. That at the end, servitization will help us to innovate the core of every product company, while at the same time, it also helps us to reinvent our joint future. And this was greetings from Germany, and with our trends and observations we have right now. Thank you very much.
Heiko, that's excellent. Thank you very much. So we see from Germany the rise in servitization being there, the confluence of these innovations in technology and subscription charging, and it's growing and it's being embraced, and this idea that it complements the product design, and it's happening inside industry and inside academia. So thank you, Heiko.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure now to introduce Elisabeth Hernandez Eleno from Mondragon University in the Basque region of Spain. And Elisabeth, over to you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm trying to make a short presentation of what we are doing right now in the Basque Country in the north of Spain, for those who don't know. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Baines for the invitation, and thanks also for to the audience that is physically there and also online in this Servitization live event. My name is Estíbaliz Hernández. I'm a professor at the University of Mondragon in the Basque Country, as I said, and also a researcher at MIC, a technological center which belongs to the Mondragon Corporation in the Basque Country too. So I'll briefly try to give an overview of how servitization is being developed in the Basque Country from a practitioner's point of view. First of all, some facts on the Basque Country, for those who don't know, which is strongly manufacturing-based region since the beginning of the 20th century, more or less, and still nowadays industry represents around 31% of its GDP. If we have a look at the ranking of the EU 28 countries by their GDP per capita, the Basque Country occupies number 8. So we have a quite regional innovation scoreboard. Well, the regional innovation scoreboard position is also a strong innovator. So we have some characteristics very different from the rest of Spain, are very similar to some thriving regions in Europe. As I said, I'll try to give a little perspective of how this strategy of servitization is being developed in the Basque Country, based on our research we have conducted in 40 industrial companies. My university and also my research center belong to the Mondragon Corporation, and also these 40 companies we have studied too. Mondragon Corporation is an industrial group located in the Basque Country, but with more than 80,000 employees all around the world. 78% of those employees or of those companies are industrial cooperatives, so we are very rooted into the industry. Most of the manufacturing firms are also SMEs, and they are competing in manufacturing sectors, so they have the need to differentiate themselves through the introduction of product service systems, this type of solutions, in order to extend their incomes, make their turnover figures more resilient to the economic cycle, and also to foster customer loyalty. So we conducted this research like in two phases. The first one was studying in situ, doing action research in 30 manufacturing firms. And also we built a community of practice around servitization with 11 industrial firms in the Basque Country. So the objective of both research was to build a servitization roadmap to help these companies to transform product-oriented business models to service-driven business models. The roadmap is mainly focused on the tactical perspective and operational drivers, since the more strategic part has been very well described by other authors like Professor Baines and others. So, as I said, the type of companies that are located in the Basque Country are more SMEs, medium and small, more small and medium companies. So the rate of adoption of servitization is quite moderate, limited, since it's occurring like at two speeds. Most of the industrial companies are offering just basic services, which basically are considered as a cost. Because they provide them for free. They don't pay attention to this added value, providing even basic services to their customers, because they have always do what the customer asks for and very focused on the product. On the other hand, there are some medium-sized and also big companies that have formalized a service strategy, development activities, responsibilities, budget, some formal processes to develop a proper servitization strategy, and also adapting their operational methods. So change is happening in a tentative, it's growing in a tentative way for the last years. And the main drivers are the decreasing competitiveness of industries, and also a very strong customer-oriented culture, so doing what the customer asks. So this customer loyalty is pulling servitization, but it's not an active strategy. So it's more like a reactive. On the other hand, the Basque government is very committed also with the Industry 4.0 technologies, and they are fostering programs for all types of companies to boost this adoption of servitization and new technologies in their productive systems. Nevertheless, we have also identified some factors that are inhibiting the adoption of servitization. The first one would be that there is a general belief among some manufacturers that customer chooses a supplier on the basis of the quality of the tangible product supplies, and services are have a secondary importance. So they put the physical good at the center of their attention, and the product dominant logic is in the middle of every negotiation, of every business done. Another issue for adopting this strategy would be the inertia that many manufacturing companies suffer from when it comes to innovating their organizational structure. As I said, the size of the company is, well, small or medium, so they don't have enough budget or enough structure to address this structural change in terms of business model or monetization strategies that servitization needs. So this developing of services business often requires reorganization and incorporation of new profiles, new competencies, and moving towards these new business models is not always easy, or at least not as easy as we would like. A third block of obstacles that we have detected recently is that slows down servitization among industrial companies, especially when it comes to the implementation of product as a service. Payment models. These are financial barriers related to administrative structure, accounting, and financing. So to deal with this barrier, we have had some research lines trying to identify financial partners to make this change possible. So as a summary, I would say that the Basque Country is basically a country of makers. We are very good at making things and making products very good with high quality, but not a country of sellers for now. So that's a little bit our challenge. The sectors we have studied, that those that are leading the servitization strategy are basically machine tools, forklift trucks, electric engines, foundries, automatisms, components for heating equipment, and packaging machines. These are more or less the sectors we have identified as leading this strategy. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the Basque companies, but well, I will try to give some samples. In some cases, I will be able to tell the name. In others, no. Well, just if you have, if you need more information, you can just contact me, and we can share more documents or whatever you want. And I have very little time. So I will focus on a forklift truck company. This is a medium-sized firm. I chose this one because it's very significant, the change they have made since 5-6 years until now. It's very significant. So this is a medium-sized firm that supplies forklift for warehouses and heavy-duty installation surfaces. And their challenge was how to make a fleet smarter thanks to a system capable of recording data, using an operation of forklift trucks, allowing customers to better manage its fleet. So what they did, they stopped producing, well, no, they stopped selling product and they started selling service. And they offer the customer the possibility of having forklifts at the customer home, new or reconditioned, and the key of these services relies on the flexibility of the value proposition regarding each type of client, and studying each client's needs and offering a personalized or tailor-made offer on the one hand. And on the other hand, also, they design a specific financial solution in partnership with DDL Group and Rabobank, which allow them to provide this type of service together with this financial partner. So I think I'm just over my time. If I'm not wrong, I need to finish at midday. If you need further information, I'm open for questions or for collaboration. If you want to know more about our roadmap or whatever you need to ask after, or online, by email, what you want. So up to now, my presentation. Thanks again, the Advanced Services Group, for the invitation, and I wish you a very pleasant journey the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Esther Belith. And back to you, Tim.
So when the research on servitization started in the UK, the early 2000s, very few people in the UK had heard the term servitization. And when we were started to think about what it might mean for manufacturing businesses, one of the biggest insights that we took was the work on product service systems, which was happening in Scandinavia. And so the next commentator we'd like to invite to share with you their insights is Christian Kolowski. And Christian's going to tell us further, Christian is also going to give us some insights on what's happening in his region in both product service systems and servitization. Christian, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. If you're interested in my research, in my books for managers, etc., on servitization, there are several links on my university website, so you can just Google and click on the links. I will not focus on that this morning. Instead, I will talk briefly about the state of the art in the Nordic countries. And overall, I would say that there is a high adoption rate of servitization evident in all industry sectors: automotive, construction, materials, aerospace, defense, chemicals, and many others. And also a lot of public organizations are interested in servitization. For example, buying outcomes instead of products, which is evident in hospitals that prefer to pay for outcome instead of medical equipment. That's fairly advanced in many Nordic countries. And there is a long history of servitization, I would say, with incumbent firms such as Ericsson, Volvo Group, ABB, Sandvik, Scania, SKF, Atlas Copco, Epiroc, Metso, Kone, Wärtsilä, and Danfoss, and many others. Sorry for the name dropping, but just showing that many of these have for a very, very long time focused on servitization. And for decades, they have engaged in systems selling, oftentimes complex projects, customized installations, although many services traditionally has indeed been given away for free. But I think also the fact that the Nordic countries, they are small, so you have small domestic markets with few large industry players, and that has fostered long-term relationships and collaboration, and that in combination with world-class manufacturing, I believe has proven to be fertile ground for servitization. And today we are seeing a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises as well, and software firms obviously engaging in servitization, and also a lot of innovative pure service players. Originally, the servitization concept as defined was not limited to manufacturing, although today it's essentially synonymous with product companies moving into services. But there are a lot of innovative service players like Core Service Management, the leading facilities management company. And also on consumer markets, I think it's fascinating to see how servitization has taken off with new value propositions highlighting the benefits of non-ownership. I think, for example, Spotify, a streaming music service, does not need any further introduction. We're seeing also a lot of other companies elaborating with different initiatives. H&M, for example, with fashion rental service. We have seen the leading optical retailer in the Nordics, offering subscription service for eyeglasses, contact lenses, and sunglasses. IKEA, not only in the consumer market, but also active in the B2B markets, providing procurement assistance, interior design, financing, installation, leasing, second-hand, and of course, assembly services for consumers as well as for professionals who can't bother to assemble their furniture. And then with Volvo Cars providing different mobility services. One of them is Care by Volvo, which is used also to attract new customers to the brand that would otherwise not have chosen a Volvo car. So it's a way of expanding the market through these services and not only through traditional product sales and leasing. And finally, also on the rental market, I think that's interesting to see a lot of equipment rental. In the construction industry, we have the construction group Skanska, but also pure service players like Ramirent of Finland that was acquired by Loxam of France in 2019. So what's then really driving the change? Well, I think that we already heard a lot of these drivers this morning. First, I mean, customers obviously expect better performance and value in use, and also higher efficiency. We do also see rising energy prices and volatility. So these are concerns of many customers. And ownership is seldom a key issue here as compared to some other European markets. This is, for example, evident in the material handling industry, where many customers already decades ago preferred to rent trucks for a fixed monthly fee with all services included. And I think here Toyota Material Handling, previously BT Roller Truck in the UK, some of you may be familiar with that brand, has been extremely successful here. And they also very well managed the second and third life of the product, which can be a concern in these type of service business models. And then, of course, we have digital transformation and circularity, which also leads and enables larger scale industry transformation. We are seeing now the establishment of massive battery production facilities, the world's first fossil-free steel production project, and so forth. So we have the digital technologies, softwarization, electrification, and these technologies, service robots, intelligent automation, and also increasingly autonomous service operations. And then what Heike also touched upon is, well, the subscription economy. And I think the subscription economy tsunami is really making inroads in B2B these days as well. So a lot of companies, I would say all the big ones, are really elaborating with different recurring revenue models that could either complement or substitute their service level agreements. And when you hear about subscription, you typically think about, well, the Netflix, maybe Office, Adobe, rather homogeneous ones. But in the B2B space, they are very heterogeneous. They're spanning from highly automated, could be software access, automatic replenishment, monitoring, to those requiring high levels of engagement, such as tailored online content for training purposes of key account customers, to those more proactive and prescriptive subscription services, such as connected troubleshooting, cybersecurity, and expert assessment. Today, I would say a lot of this is still exploratory, but much more mature as compared to a couple of years ago, when focus was much more on technology and what's technically possible to offer. And then we have increased environmental and climate concerns that have spurred the development of service business models based on circular economy principles, such as agreed upon energy improvements and reuse, remanufacturing, or recycling of equipment. And also the emergence of new industrial ecosystems. So typically this digitalization and circularity goes very much hand in hand and with servitization. Two examples here is, well, autonomous shipping and mining operations, when we see these new industrial ecosystems. So for example, for a long time, the maritime industry used to be a laggard when it comes to adoption of new technologies. But today, vessels are more electric, digital, and connected than ever before. And both customers and suppliers have large operational centers. We have ABB, Kongsberg, Wärtsilä, also Rolls-Royce in Norway, focusing on these digital services and testing autonomous shipping. And in the mining industry, well, scoop tram automation, traffic management, fleet management systems being integrated, seeing new ecosystems and value constellations emerging with different software and hardware providers involved. Another example I like is, well, new ecosystems for circularity and digitalization initiatives. For example, electric motors consume 40% of Sweden's total energy, and there's a huge improvement potential here. So in a recent ongoing project, ABB has installed smart sensors on the motors of some of its pulp and paper mill customers in order to optimize energy and increase uptime. And they also have teamed up with a recycling company, Stena Recycling, developing specific containers. So it's joint design work for smart recycling as well. And we have here more effective material separation, and these recycled metals are then being sold. So to sum up, I would say that from my point of view, we are seeing a revival for traditional industry with these companies with domain expertise. 8 years ago, actually, the Swedish Prime Minister said in Davos, we used to have people in the industry, but they are basically gone. And I believe that nothing could be more wrong. Even if the manufacturing sector today is smaller than 20 years ago, in the new industrial ecosystems for servitization that we are seeing today, the boundaries between manufacturing and service sectors are even more blurred than back then. And industry and servitization play key roles for the competitiveness of the Nordic region and also for building a more sustainable and resilient society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. And thank you to all our first three speakers, giving us this commentary of what is actually happening in Germany, in the manufacturing region of Spain, in the Nordics. This idea that servitization is there, is happening, and in some regions is happening an awful lot faster than we perhaps experience inside the UK. To really support us with this conversation about servitization, I'm going to invite one of our technology partners to come along, Anthony Bourne from IFS, to come along and to share with us what they are seeing on servitization in their business. Anthony.
Thank you for that introduction, Tim. And it's just so nice to be here, like everybody's mentioned before, about getting involved with these face-to-face events again. I think I'm going to come at it a little bit differently as well and talk about some examples. I always like to bring it to life. You know, I've listened to Tim and his colleagues for many years now, and I fully embrace the aspect and the potential of servitization. But I think a lot of companies still want the inspiration. You know, tell me about somebody else that's doing it. Show me how they're and the rewards that they're getting from it. And I think if we look back, traditionally, or going back a couple of years, I always used to ask our customers, you know, why are you adopting servitization? And it always used to be one of three things, or a combination of all three. They wanted to grow the business. Yeah, a lot of people want to do that. They wanted to differentiate themselves, which I think is the key thing. They wanted to show the market why they were different, what they could offer to the market as opposed to the traditional product sell that we've all talked about. And they also saw the potential from a financial point of view, the increase in the margins, which we've all accepted from a service aspect. So that was going back a couple of years, but I think in the last 18 months, two more things have come into it now. The first is the supply chain. We've all seen on the news how the supply chain has been disrupted massively in some cases from different forces. So companies now looking at it from a servitization point of view and saying, okay, we can help you manage the supply chain by giving you this outcome-based service in there, and then having technology help them manage their own internal supply chain to satisfy the outcome. But also the second one is environmental. We've all seen in the news as well over the last 12 months what the impact is from an environmental aspect. And you have to put yourselves in the position of some of the manufacturing elements, because they want to actually bring back the products. Christian highlighted it before, the whole reduce, reuse, and recycle. By companies adopting the more servitization approach, they can support these environmental issues, because then they can actually bring the products back during the contract, break it down, reuse some of those products in serving out more products in the future, or recycling of them, because they don't want to continuously buy. And Christian talked about it's moving from this linear economy, from make to landfill, to actually that circular economy. And servitization actually brings a massive impact on the circular economy, on how it can actually support this. So now, if I look at from a global point of view, I've just broken it into three areas. If I start off with Europe, I think there's been a lot of interest in all countries. Christian mentioned from a Scandinavian point of view. We got a lot of companies of our customers of ourselves adopting different methodologies. Just to give you some examples, people flow as a service. You know, we've got customers looking after ticketing machines or gate entry machines in undergrounds or train stations. They don't charge them by the ticket machines themselves now. It's like how many people are going through those gates. That's what they charge for. We've got cleaning as a service, very relevant in the last 18 months. So they've got specific hygiene levels which they can measure and report and contract to. We've also got testing as a service. I noticed there's some in the conference here as well, that physically, that you can actually go and have testing as a service. So we've got customers that have seen massive growth, as you might expect over the last 18 months, being able to say, we can actually test and offer you testing per test and give you that as a service. We've also got security as a service, people making the cameras. Instead of, again, selling the cameras, they're selling that option in there. Office as a service. So I'm just trying to give you some examples because people want to see that. People need to get that knowledge and experience from other customers and other companies in relation to it. But one on our actual stand that we've promoting here is one of our customers does recycling as a service. So bringing that point up that I mentioned before about disruption in the industry today, they offer recycling as a service. They have reverse vending machines. So you can take your cans and your bottles, put them into machines, and it'll actually then credit you back then. Sounds simple, but when you start thinking about why they're doing it, again, it's the environmental issue coming into it. When they're putting it in places like supermarkets, the supermarket has a responsibility as well to offer that facility. So, and there's brand loyalty from the actual majors like the Coca-Colas, the Pepsis and things like that, because they've got their own environmental standards they need to meet. So you can see that's where the disruption thing is coming into it from a European aspect in there to be actually give that and offer that recycling as a service as well. If I then flick over to the USA, I think the level of talk about servitization there at the minute is outpacing the level of implementation at the moment. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for the Advanced Services Group and others out there to really give clarity about what it means and give them examples from the rest of the world to actually say, okay, take inspiration, see what others are doing it within that particular region. So, but there are some green shoots there in two areas, more from an energy and utilities aspect, offering guaranteed energy as a service, but also in loose terms, comfort as a service. And what I mean by that, there are several of our customers going through the stages now of offering heating as a service or air purity as a service, those sorts of aspects within that specific region there. So I still think from an America's point of view, they are 2 to 3 years behind where some of the European companies are at the minute, but I can certainly see that rising over the coming years where more customers or more companies recognize why they need to do it. And then if I move to the Far East then, I think this is where it is less mature. And I think one of the reasons for that is they've got other ways to be competitive in the market. They can still be competitive on a price point of view. So the pressure isn't coming on companies at the minute to say, okay, how can we differentiate ourselves? Because they recognize we can and do have opportunities to differentiate themselves. But there's still opportunities there. I think some of my colleagues before mentioned about it, talking about earth movement or construction. That's where we're seeing companies looking from that particular region on how they can offer that service. There's still tremendous construction opportunities out there. So again, they're offering that as a service there. So I think in summary, those are just where we are at the moment, or certainly the way I see it, and when I talk to our customers and prospects out there about why are they doing it, they do recognize that they need to grow their business and differentiate, etc., and improve the margins. But this disruptive phase that we're in at the minute, and it's not going away, by the way. We all know that disruption is here to stay. We've experienced it. So how can they embrace the environmental aspects of it, as well as the supply chain aspects from it? And that's as a technology vendor, they recognize us as somebody that has got a solution to help support the customers and the assets and their people about how they can use technology now and help give them that offering to the market in there. Thank you for listening. For those here, come over and see us at the stand later, and I can talk to you more for many, many hours about what we got as an opportunity from a technology point of view. But thank you, and thank you, Tim.
No, thank you, Anthony. That's great. Tim. Look. Anthony, you got a round of applause. I didn't. So what we've heard so far is about a regional roundup so far, and we've got Anthony commenting from the technology perspective. What we'd like to do now is to take you through a case study, and the case study is from Goodyear, and I'd like to invite Mark Preedy, who is the Managing Director of Goodyear Solutions, and Jill is just chaperoning Mark towards the stage. Are you going to come? Absolutely. Mark and I have known each other quite a few years. We've worked with Goodyear on and off really for the past 8 or 9 years now. When we first got to know Goodyear, it was very much from this perspective of currently Goodyear sell truck tyres, and we just want to focus on keeping the truck on the road. And Mark has been very much part of Goodyear's journey towards servitization, really over that, well, I guess you've been doing it for the past 10 years, haven't you? So you're going to take us through some of the innovations that are actually happening inside Goodyear. Mark.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for inviting me today. It's an interesting thing because working for a large global manufacturer of a commodity, it's an interesting thing to talk about service and servitization. Very much born from the fact that customer feedback, voice of the customer feedback, in a very positive way, 10 or 12 years ago, forced us down a route of having to think about the asset being the black and round thing that touches the road. Again, you know, if you think about your own personal life, tires are a distressed purchase. You only ever buy them when you think you need them. Very few people take lots of tender love and care over making sure those tires are fully inflated, they hug the road and things like that. So unfortunately, tires have always been seen as this thing to the side that you replace when you have to spend some money. Now, Goodyear, okay, our company, 70,000 plus people globally, leading in innovation in tires. That's the challenge for us. So again, if you think about large global corporations trying to change the mindset of not only the internal stakeholders, but also giving some consideration to external stakeholders and also how the industry views servitization within tires has been a major challenge for us. Our team in Europe have very much embraced this over the years, but also our colleagues in Akron, where our head office is based, have also took on the same journey. In fact, the group in Akron have a Beyond Tires concept group that invest in lots of companies, some startups, some more established, to try and think about how we view mobility. And if you view mobility and think about mobility, then that brings you back to servitization, because you've got this black and round thing that touches the road, okay, that you want to love and cherish to make that tire last as long as possible. The buzzword around a lot, and I hear it a lot in our industry as well, is sustainability. Okay, so there's a hell of a lot of work going on around the tire technology to make the tire last as long as possible, being as eco-friendly as it possibly can be. The tools and services that Goodyear have developed over the years make that tire last longer, which has a very positive effect on the carbon footprint. Not only do you have an improved rolling resistance of your tire because it's loved and cherished, but also the waste is also significantly cut down. So we're replacing tires on average 10 to 15% longer than maybe we would have done 5 to 10 years ago because of these technologies. Again, lots of words on the screen. I'm not going to read through all of those. You can read faster than I can talk them. But Tim alluded to it before. You know, some years ago, Tim and I sort of bumped shoulders on a transportation group that we were working on and looking at the way that transport in the UK was being managed. At that point in time, I inherited a mileage business. So basically that means I take the whole risk on an asset. So I'm renting it basically to a customer. And if I don't make that asset last longer, the net effect for us as a manufacturer was quite catastrophic for the bottom line. So we embarked on a series of different thought processes to try and think about how we could make service a pillar on its own, how we can make service a revenue line, but also how we could internally manage that to maximize, again, the black and round thing that touches the road. So, standard speech for any guy that works in tires, you know, make the tire last longer, reduce your downtime, less breakdowns, less cost effectiveness. Those things in itself don't really work. You have to have tailor-made things to go along with the black and round thing that touches the road to make it last longer. So I'll talk a little bit about the innovations that we've done and how that's helped us sort of change our life a little bit. So again, Goodyear TPMS. Every car you buy these days has your little orange light that really annoys you in the weather when the weather turns cold and you haven't checked your inflations, and because you don't use your car maybe as much, you have to go and get it pumped up at the garage, etc., etc. What Goodyear did, Goodyear worked on a whole raft of measures looking at predictive algorithms. So based on hundreds of thousands of lines of data going back over 15 years, we've now really been able to track how a tire behaves in certain conditions, both weather and also operating conditions, and how we can work with a fleet customer and work with an end user to accurately predict the end of the life of that tire. Okay, again, it goes back to this whole thing around cost effectiveness, helping businesses bottom line, but also then reducing the end user's downtime. So the whole piece around TPMS, tire pressure monitoring systems, was designed with that in mind. But then we sort of got, you know, we got comfortable with that, and we got comfortable with the way that that had been rolled out into the industry, and we thought, right, okay, we need to do more because competition doesn't stand still either. And I'm going to skip to the very end of this one, which is the drive over reader. So Goodyear as a corporation liked what we were doing, and we invested and bought a company in Germany called Ventec. Ventec have a drive over reader. Okay, so you sync the drive over reader at the entrance point to a location or to a garage or to a service station or anywhere you see fit. The asset comes in, parks on it, it takes your pressure, it takes your weight, and it takes your tread depths. So from a customer's point of view, he is completely satisfied that once that asset of his has rolled over the plate and left his yard, it's got optimum pressure, optimum tread depth, and he's on his weight. Okay, so from a tire perspective, the customer's safe in the knowledge that when the asset leaves the facility, it's in the best health that it can be in terms of its tires. That was quite industry leading. There are a few other competitors in the marketplace now who've bought sort of drive over reader lights for light commercials and vans. But some of the customers in the UK that we've got those in, Morrison's, okay, food, and also DPD. DPD have got 4. Very important for us all as consumers. And if you think over the last 18 months, you know, it's the revolving door of tires, of parcels that have been delivered from DPD. See more of the DPD guy than sometimes you did of your own family. Again, if you think about the knock-on effect of what we did with DPD, allowing those guys to guarantee that the mobile phone that you've ordered that will be delivered between 1 minute past 1 and 1 minute past 2, you know, they rely on making sure that their tires and maintenance are at the optimum level. So that's how we help a company like DPD. I'll come on specifically to ZF after, because that's the latest thing that we've done. Goodyear Drive Point. This is a cheaper option, and this is for our independent distributor network as well as our fleet customers. 2 pillars outside the yard, a pressure cap that's mounted on top of the valve on the tire. So as you drive into the facility, again, it reads all the tires as they go past. Predictive algorithms kick in. The driver has an alert system in his cab. The transport office has an alert system in his cab. There's nothing that tire doesn't know that we can't learn from. So from that perspective, we're able to deploy these much, much quicker than a TPMS solution. So again, you know, for an added value and an added sell-on for the independent tire dealers, there's a service revenue and a service stream based on what that information on that drive point on the gate is telling them. So again, maximizing service, maximizing the uptime of your tire, making the product last longer. Last but by no means least on here is a thing called Fleet Online Solutions. That's Goodyear's internal system to manage all of the data that I've just taken 10 minutes to describe. So everything that happens, every different device that our tires touch, linked to our fleet customers, end up in a whole database. That allows the team then to step back a little bit and analyze the product performance, because ultimately we make tires and we make good tires, and we want them to last as long as we commit to the customer. So that helps us to guarantee the product. That helps us to say, if it's going to do 200, 300, 400,000 kilometers, depending on the size and type, that allows us to accurately predict that we can do that, and then we can make a guarantee. So customers then learn to trust. They let go a little bit, because actually you're trusting in the numbers, you're trusting in the data that you share. This data is transparent. At any point in time, the customer can look at our performance. So, you know, we're more than transparent, we're more than open. The customer can have the ability, if he wants, to give it his driver to have in a cab, or if he doesn't want to alarm his driver, he can keep that at the transport office. So all of these things are designed, again, carbon footprint, maximize the life of the tire, and an additional revenue stream in terms of the service work. And again, you know, history and the sands of time have told us that almost at some points in time, sort of service was talked about as a bit of a dirty word. It was the cost that nobody really wanted to pass on to the end user, okay? It was the bucket of cost over there that was millions every year that nobody really focused too much on. All of these different systems, especially in the UK, where we have an owned equity business, where we have around about 300 technicians, you know, all of these things are designed to make service, and therefore servitization, not such a dirty word, but actually one that customers now feel with Goodyear that they can invest in. ZF, okay, ZF, those in the transport industry may have heard of the name Wabco. ZF bought Wabco. 74% of every new asset that's built in the commercial industry comes with Wabco or ZF braking systems. The next stage of our thought process with customers was how we could partner with another provider, again, to make a joint offer. So ZF has allowed us to use each other's hardware and each other's software and go to some customers with a joint offer. You know, if you're a fleet operator, you may have a Mercedes with its onboard cab alert. You may be driving a refrigerated trailer with bonded back doors because of the load you carry. You would then have TPMS on your tires, and you might even have TPMS on your, you might have an alert system on your braking system as well as your cab. So as a driver, you could end up having 6 or 7 whistles and bells that alert you to a problem on your asset. What we're trying to do with the relationship with ZF is to sort of pare that down a little bit and really think about the effect on the driver, think about the effect on the asset. And again, it's all about uptime, managing the asset and challenging that through. You can see from the diagram there that the yellow spots sort of tell you where we're looking and where we can act. But what we tried to do over the years is to elevate Goodyear a little bit from being the guys that just do the black and round thing that touches the road, etc., to really allowing customers to sort of step back a little bit and relinquish, not control, because ultimately they pay the bill, but just to trust in somebody else to provide a real service to them as an end user. And again, you know, a lot of these come with a fixed cost per month. So as an end user, you know what you're going to pay for your tires. I think it's something around the mark of 23, 24% of expenditure in our industry goes on tires. So when you look at it like that, you know, we're a big piece of cost if it was just a black and round thing to an end user. So what we try to do more than anything is to enhance that offer and give the customer more options. And I think that's my end slide. So, yeah, a bit left of center, and again, a little bit different, but sort of the way we've approached it is purely customer, voice of the customer backwards, re-engineered it through an innovation group, which was a challenge because not everybody in tires wants to do service. successfully managed to encourage the company to invest lots. And we're now in a stage where we've got maturity. So there's on one of the visuals outside, there's the business school roadmap of, starting it to when you've got acceptability with the 4 different colors. In fact, it's at the back there, I can see it now. We're very much top right-hand corner of the pink blob now. Okay, so we're at a point where this is mass deployed. We've got it being sold now across 350 sales associates from the end of Ireland to the end of Russia to the North Pole to the equator. So that big bit in the middle, I've now managed to get all of our guys trained, all of our guys educated. And like anything, we started in the West mature markets, and now it's graduated east. And even Russia's now been penetrated with these solutions, which is a major breakthrough because of the way that legislation works in Russia and getting things type approved. So, yeah, fantastic journey. Really good to be a part of it, and really nice to think about something else to add value, not just selling the tire.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. So we have time now for questions, and I'd like to first start by inviting the audience in the room to see whether anybody has got any questions they'd like to put to Mark about Goodyear, about the journey that Goodyear's been through, about what services actually look like inside that organisation today. Anybody want to break the ice and stick their hands up? Oh, sorry.
Yes. Hello, Mark. I'm really interested to know more about...
Sorry, name an organisation, please.
Yes, so it's Kate Rattigan from Domino Printing Sciences. I'm really interested to know more about how you came to work with ZF and how you came to formulate your commercial model.
Yeah, so ZF, I'll start with that. ZF and Goodyear, they both have hardware and they both have software. And one of the complaints from the customer is, if I'm buying it from you and I'm buying it from you, am I paying twice? Can you get your systems to talk to each other? Because you actually cut down on the hardware that you've got. So it was a really good fit for us. Secondly, legislation's changing across Europe on trailer. So TPMS will be also mandatory on trailer, not just driven powered units. And with ZF having such a big market share, the logical thing for Goodyear was to find a like-minded partner to think about how we can share ideas and share best practices and go and see customers mutually together. So that's how that was sort of born. And it's taken many years to get it from, a very open discussion and could we to actually getting it around the table. Because again, you've got to be very careful with the way that you phrase the offer to the end user, who's the leading partner in the negotiation and things like that. So that's how that evolved. The commercial offer again has evolved as well, because back 12 years ago, it was, how long do you think the tire is going to last? How much damage do you think you're going to cause? And there's a price. So that's how we crudely got to a mileage type contract. Driven a lot from the UK, because around about 50% of the UK's fleet market is driven by pence per kilometre. So all of your bus companies, they pay, it's basically a rental of an asset. But you had such spikes in variation because you could end up fitting thousands of tyres in a month and not know why. And if you didn't have your hand on the pulse with the service technician, the fitter as they were called back in the day, you lose your money, you lose your shirt. It's that cavalier. So by introducing these different solutions, that allows us much more control. We can relax a bit, safe in the knowledge that the data is telling us what the tyre is doing. So again, we call it proactive solutions, but actually the proactive piece is now being much more reactive with regards to routine maintenance than proactive, which was the old days of turning up in a yard, walking up and down and finding work. We can now go to the asset that needs to be looked at, not look at 100 to find 2. Thank you.
There's another question over by the camera.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you can hear me. Christina King from Tribosonics. So I'm really interested to know when you started the journey. You may have answered it there. What were the barriers to implementation?
Some of the barriers were internal. Again, you've got traditional tyre manufacturing with 70,000 plus people around the world that make tyres. Goodyear in the UK as well. Goodyear and Dunlop became a force in the early 2000s. So, some of the iconic brands and names that you go through history, Goodyear and Dunlop, you just think of tires. So the internal perception that actually you can't just build a black thing, sell it and walk away, took quite some challenges to overcome internally. Once you've overcome that hurdle, the next thing is to think about how you bring your organization with you, so the people that work for you. And that's been the biggest challenge, because if you've got a very experienced salesperson who's used to selling volume on a price, and now all of a sudden you've got to turn around and say, right, you've got a subtle art of seduction with the fleet customer now. You've got to understand his pain points and understand where his costs are. It's a very different mindset that you need with your sales team. I would say that we're probably 50% along the journey of acceptance from the sales team. This week and last week and next week, I'm traveling all those countries that I referenced before, looking at 2022's operating plans, and the level of maturity of the offer in some of the markets is quite diverse. So again, we know we've still got some work to do. And I think the other thing that keeps us honest with that is the competition. Bridgestone, Michelin, Continental, those are giants. They won't stand still and just let Goodyear take market share. So, we've got to keep talking to customers and end users, understanding the information and the data, and see where it takes us next, really, in the world of mobility. Thanks for the question.
Any further questions? If I may, if we perhaps come over this side of the screen room for a second, then we'll jump back later.
Hi, my name is Matthias. I'm from Grundfos, a Danish pump company. My question goes along the lines of, have you starting to be able to show revenue back to your management row in terms of like the investments they've made, and you're actually showing that it pays off?
Yeah, great question, because ultimately, your internal stakeholders need to see the return on the investment. So that's a big piece of the last 6 months. We're able now to generate a separate revenue stream. We're able to report on it. What we face a challenge is also working out those customers that you retain, okay? Because some of the technology you've seen on the screen also help us retain customers, not necessarily win new ones. So there's there's a harmonization of both. But, simple answer to the question is yes, we're able to display it, we're able to articulate on it. And, Goodyear's solutions as standalone things, the pictures you saw on the screen, they're part of the story to make more money and increase the net sales line based on the package, including the tire. If you look at those little sensors that go on a tire, or you look at a drive-over reader, a sensor anywhere from a couple of pounds to a drive-over reader that's 100 grand, potentially. So you've got those economies of scale in trying to work out the best solution for the right person. But again, you've got a tire package 9 times out of 10 that goes along with the solution. So, yeah, and it's fun to do. And it's fun to sit and talk to people around how much money you make from service. Again, going back to the years I've known Tim, we started these conversations 10 years ago on working out if we could get another 1% out of service. I think the number was back then. Whilst it's not the right forum to share numbers like that, we're seeing a substantial increase in service revenue because of the solutions that we offer. And it gives you another avenue into an end user. And by using that data, and also the service element of that cost, we're able to circle back with people that have signed up and show them themselves the benefit realization from the package they signed up to. So we're able to articulate what we did. So, we've seduced, we've got you a contract, we've deployed the solution, but now we work back and also say, this is what it saved you. So again, it's that repeat transaction that we're looking for. When we're looking for multiple year contracts with this, which allows me a predictability then in terms of supply and tire supply. So again, it works both ways. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just take one last question in the room. I think there's a question here.
Hi there, yeah, Mike Curl from Capgemini. How far ahead are you thinking in terms of sort of technology trends? So I guess puncture-proof tires that don't need sensors, self-driving trucks. Have you got a roadmap going out 5-10 years for some of these trends?
We have up to 10 at the minute. And it's a very interesting debate, because at the moment the conversation comes around, I mentioned competitors before, is my next competitor going to be Michelin, Bridgestone, Continental, whoever? Or is my next competitor actually going to be a data provider? Somebody that's able to take all of these information from all of these different systems in and spit it back out in a way that the customer's got a one-stop shop for this stuff. So it might actually be not tire people that I've got to not worry about, but think about. And the speed of technology in this stuff moves so fast. So we set out a roadmap vision for the next 5 to 10 years as part of what Goodyear does every year. But again, because of where we are with sustainability and trying to improve the carbon footprint, the push on diesel engines, the push on battery-powered vehicles, it's huge. And we spend a lot of time thinking not only about the solution, but how the solution that affects the tyre that we need to make to put on that asset in a new world. So you've got two heads. You know, how to use the information to develop your solutions and your services business, but also what sort of tyre do I make that can take a battery as big of a house? You know, that kind of thing at this moment in time. So we have two hats on that one at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We're now going to move to just take a few questions from our online audience. So over to you, Parexit.
Thanks, Tim. We have a question online from Iago. Iago, could you please introduce yourself and then ask Mark the question?
Sure. I'm Iago from Spain, marketing manager for Concentrol, a chemical solutions company. And my question is regarding the sales force. I mean, how do you turn your sales force into selling solutions instead of products?
That's a great question. I touched on it before. You know, Goodyear alone won't crack the solution to that. We work with some really good global external training companies and negotiation companies to help us on that. You know, I'm ultimately the guy that's responsible for the numbers. You know, so I'm the one that carries the target on my back. But what you've got to do is take a step back and think about what your value proposition is going to be. So to your question before, about 5-10 years time, I've got a value proposition today that's a tyre and some solutions and some services. You've got to give some consideration then to how you want to develop and train your team. So we started with what I would call like the national account group, the key account managers, those that look after large fleet customers. And they've been through a series of online training, face-to-face training. We've really enhanced how we also go out and visit customers. So these days, the old days of 85, 90 PowerPoint presentation slides and go in and kill the customer on the first meeting with everything about a tyre and everything about Goodyear, those days are gone. We work lots on understanding customers' pain points, really understanding the challenge the customer has. Then we take a step back, we review, we go away and we come back with some tailor-made solutions that we think would save the customer some money, but also enhance our own business. And I think that's the difference. You're not in a situation anymore where before leaving the room, you want to close the sale. You've got to take a longer term view that actually, you know, this may take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, in some cases years to be able to do that. The case in point being XPO. So Goodyear were fortunate enough 18 months ago to win the XPO business across Europe. You know, I was part of a group 5 years before that unsuccessfully tendered for that business, stayed close to the customer. We worked through some of the examples of the DOR with XPO. I think they've got 8, maybe 10 in France. And it's massively increased their uptime. Less maintenance in the workshops, you know, more time to do better things than just pump up tyres. So, yeah, lots of help, lots of encouragement, lots of support to the sales team, but it's not a 2-minute thing. And like I said before, we're only around 50% of the way through what I would say is global acceptance on the sales force, that's the way we want them to sell solutions going forward.
Thank you, Mark. So I'd like now to return to the room to see if there's any further questions from Mark from the audience in the room? Yes?
I had just one other question. So when you diversified into fleet management solutions, so did you restrict yourself with all the sensor-based solutions to only Goodyear tires, or did you have to extend it to other tires as well, because a company might have different set of tires?
Our solutions can be deployed on competitor tires as well, because ultimately the TPMS thing sits on the rim. So if the customer wants to take a revenue stream with us and pay us just for the tire pressure monitoring, we're happy to do so. But I think the way that we've evolved, and again, going back to the coloured roadmap that the university, the business school deploy, we quickly learned that as you went along that journey, you probably weren't going to make a fortune just selling these little things in isolation to a fleet that's not yours. What you really want to do is, again, I go back to this pain point thing. I want to understand why they've got a problem or why they've got a cost problem, and have belief in my black and round thing that touches the road, my product, and the fact that these solutions can make my product last infinitely longer compared to some of the competitor tires. You know, that's the thing. And I think we thought at the beginning that just selling the stuff might do it. But no, the package, the mobility package, and helping the end user save money, it results in tire sales. And for a manufacturer, any manufacturer, the best thing is predictability of supply. So by signing 3-5-year contracts, that allows me to work with my manufacturing team. I can now sort of predict to the factory what size and type I'm going to sell for the next 2 or 3 years based on those fleet contracts. So again, the whole business improves because of one element of planning. So again, you know, we've evolved quite a bit along that colourful journey that's on the roadmap at the back of the room. Great question, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any final questions? Oh, sorry.
Caroline Ennis from University of Westminster. I'm quite interested in the business ecosystem and the capabilities that you offer to companies like DPD. And one of the things that they've now done is collaborated with the Post Office to become a bigger offering for point of delivery. Do you actually collect any data about the opportunities that you give for the extending of the business for companies like DPD and what that offers you for the future, going beyond your direct customer and further out?
Yeah, because I think anything that's sort of transport related, you gather so much information. Length of journey, working with customers on how often you service the product, look at it, where they travel to and from, regional distribution centre versus local drop. And again, you know, lots of the supermarkets took this leap 4 or 5 years ago where they just said, you know what, we're going to come out of the city. We're going to have multi-drop, really big regional distribution centres that are just off the motorway network and then drop it in a 3.5 or a 7.5 ton van. And I think that last mile deployment, you know, is where the next big game is for Goodyear in many respects. And it's too easy to assume on the lighter commercials, such as your post office delivery vans and your DPD delivery vans, that they won't be affected by the same challenges, but we're finding that they are. So those solutions that we've deployed in truck are now finding their way into, they're not consumer, so it's a light truck environment. So yes, sharing lots of information and again, sharing lots of the benefits of what we've done with DPD. So if they go into collaboration, part of the sell for those guys is, look, you know, I've got predictability of product and predictability of tire. So yeah, the two go together. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to start to move us on, Mark, to our next presentation. But before I do that, I'd like to ask you a question myself. And it's like this. It's when we first started working together and we were looking at the service innovations, and Goodyear were looking to experiment, and they were looking for markets where these innovations were going to gain traction quickly. And the pattern that, if I recall correctly, that you followed was that the innovation was, first of all, tested in the UK. It was moved out across Europe and eventually into North America. That was the pattern, and it reflected the appetite of those markets for those services at that time. In a moment, we're going to move our conversation with our online guests from Europe to the USA. And what I'd like to ask you is that if you're going through that process today of innovating new services, and particularly those outcome-based services, those advanced services we've talked about, keeping the truck on the road, where would you start now? Would you follow the same pattern?
Probably yes. The big difference between then and now is the amount of data that's out there and the ease of access of that information. It wasn't around when we started this 12 years, 10 years ago. It wasn't there. You know, the Fleet Online Solutions piece that was on one of my slides, that was information about tyres that have been removed. There was nothing in there predictive about tyres that have been serviced, tyres that have failed early. When I say failed early, you know, things that have been run flat because inflation's down. All of those things you kind of had a handle on because you knew it, because you'd always done it. We didn't have the data to back those things up. Armed with what we've got now, we could make faster decisions, better decisions on fact-based data.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, you only have to pick your phone up and your phone tells you where you've got to go next. You don't have to do anything with it, you know. And again, there was a diagram on the screen that showed the screen that the driver sees. Tells him the exact wheel position that he's got a challenge with. It tells him if it's an amber alert so he can relax a little bit and get to his next destination, or whether it's red and he could do with stopping a bit quicker. So again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but based with the data and based on where we are now, we would have tried to have gone much more down a data-led thing, other than at the start, a lot of this was intuitive. It just was. But you knew instinctively that you had to do something to make the tyre last longer, because you needed to protect the customer's interest, protect the company's interest, but also, you know, the amount of breakdowns that you incur, the amount of cost that customers incur. So voice of the customer and the data piece is where I would start now if I had my time over again.
And the same pattern of regions?
Sorry?
The same pattern in terms of regions, UK, Europe, the States, or would it be across the piece?
The US started with their piece not long after us, because a colleague of mine at the time that was part of the group, Jim Oichner, was working both sides of the Atlantic, but the States have massively overtook us now. And it's super cool because you've got the hub of Goodyear, which is Akron in Ohio. Those guys are a whole raft of people, a fund dedicated, like I said before, to startups and investment in future mobility. So if anything, it's coming US out now, which for me is probably, there's a question before about internal and external stakeholders. That's probably the biggest thing for me that it feels like a really big win, is that the fact that it comes from head office, there's a team, there's a budget, there's thoughts around future mobility, 5 to 10 years, as we said before. That helps me relax a little bit, because my job's not done, but I can relax safe in the knowledge that it's not just a little pocket of Europe or a little island in the UK that does these things, that everybody embraces what we want to do.
That's great. Mark, thank you very much for today's presentation, and thanks also for all the support of our group over the years, so thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
So we're going to move to North America now with our own roundup of what's happening around the world. And we're going to move to Mexico, and we're going to ask David Romero, to give us his insights into what is happening in terms of the adoption of servitization in his region.
Hi, team. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you, team and Advanced Services Group, for the opportunity to give a voice to Mexico and Latin America. To be sincere, the term servitization, or strategy, I should say, is not that well known in Mexico and Latin America. But it's clear that to survive and thrive in an emerging experience economy, the Mexican and Latin American manufacturers should embrace the servitization of manufacturing as their new competitive strategy. Being said that, most of our national and regional manufacturers are at the early stages of their servitization journey, offering basic services such as spare parts, maintenance, and repair, which are really elementary services demanded and expected by any customers nowadays. And just a few offering some intermediary services, like assisting services and condition-based monitoring, which mainly aim to stimulate the demand of basic services, which of course, this is not the ideal situation, because rather we would like to see them using these intermediary services, acting as enablers for the provisioning of advanced services focused on offering contractual guarantees. So, the servitization maturity, if I'm allowed to say, in Mexico and Latin America, but being also very clear that also there's a huge research opportunity to really get data about what is the true, service maturity, because this is more from my own experience of interacting with many industrial partners, is that it's very basic, and it's quickly starting to be insufficient for many manufacturers in the region, particularly of capital goods, as they observe, and we have seen, and we are discussing it now, the proliferation of industrial product service systems providers in other regions of the world, already delivering life cycle services aimed at providing maximum utility, flexibility, and lifetime returns on assets investments. So of course, as we are a global economy, many companies, many consumers, they want to have this same level of service from their products they are acquiring. So if I'm allowed, as part of my intervention in this international forum on advanced services, I would like really to call my national regional manufacturing sector to immediately start exploring servitization strategies as a new source of competitive advantage. And you were mentioning at the beginning of the event why people should do this. Well, I think particularly for Latin America, it's because servitization can help manufacturers to secure, to develop long-term relationships with customers, as many Latin countries, including Mexico, Brazil, transition from emerging to developing economies and are required now to overcome low-cost competition as new medium wage countries, because the servitization of manufacturing can help to increase revenue through service offerings and improve profitability through the provisioning of added value services in a challenging economic period that many of us we are experiencing, that many manufacturers require to make a comeback. So services can come to the rescue for these challenging situations in where we are nowadays. Moreover, because it's really a mandatory new business model to explore as part of this new Industry 4.0 era, and that digital transformation, digitalization of businesses and products. So let me just wrap up finally, providing one of the few examples of consolidated service business models that we have in Mexico, which is the digital platform Cemex Go, belonging to the Cemex Cement, Concrete and Aggregates Company, which has developed a way of provisioning customers with an optimal experience. And I started my intervention talking about this new experience economy, right? The way we interact, how we innovate, the way we interact with our products. And what they did is to create this optimal experience through an app to place orders, track orders in real time, and manage invoices and payments of the company's main products. So now if you are a constructor, right, and you are at your construction field, right, just from your fingerprints through an app, you can actually order a specific mix of cement or concrete or an aggregate and really see the truck bringing your product in real time, as you were seeing perhaps as were you ordering a Uber nowadays, right? And immediately once it has arrived, and of course, knowing exactly when it has to arrive allows you to better organize your workforce. And immediately once it's come in, you can make your payment. So it's really also a powerful way that I would say that servitization is also contributing to a more customer-centric mindset in companies. So that would be my report from Mexico, and back to you, Tim.
Thank you, David.
Okay, thanks, Tim. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Ashish Saxena from Wipro. Ashish is responsible for manufacturing in North America and has expertise and track record in strategic business transformation and looking at alternative revenue models. So Ashish, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're able to hear me well.
Yes, thank you.
Very good, very good. Good morning. Hope you are enjoying the day. It's fantastic to see how servitization sessions are being planned. This topic is close to my heart and looking forward for discussion. So if you can move along with my slide, if I'm able to move slides, it will be great. So that we are able to hear it well. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So if you look at it today in the world of economy of every day as a service economy is becoming very, very powerful phenomena. Manufacturing companies, my colleague David spoke about how the servitization is playing a very important role in Mexico. I would touch upon the servitization trend into the global and primarily into the Asia Pac region. The perspective of the servitization and manufacturers, as they look at it, the customers are beginning to ask services along with the product. There is a clear shift from the B2B to B2C. Manufacturers are beginning to look at it, how they can drive the revenue streams from the services, the product they have sold. There is a clarity of the driving the sustainability agenda, which makes manufacturing companies to look at its servitization very, very in an important manner and driving the revenue and new business model. Looking at some of the sectors, most of the sectors are beginning to use the servitization as one of the aspect of it, but some are doing better than other. Especially aerospace business and transport business, since they have been ahead of the technology, they were able to use servitization in a much better way because they had infrastructure already there. Some of other industry segments like chemical engineering, machinery are coming back. They are beginning to adopt, but their adoption is slow because the technology adoption has been slower into that industry. Some of the phenomena are becoming, whether it is a heating, cooling, lighting, there is a phenomenal use cases are there, lighting as a service or the cooling as a service, which some of the manufacturers have adopted to do that. So it's very interesting to see the every sectors are beginning to look at it, how the servitization can play into their journey and drive the revenue growth. If I can look at it from a perspective of where I look at it from the perspective, the role of servitization in the manufacturing. I talk about 5R as manufacturers are looking at it, driving transformation agenda or the future proofing themselves. They need to be responsible, responsive, reliable, resilient, and reskilled. It's interesting to see that each of these areas, servitization plays a very important role. If you look at it being responsible, the example comes to my mind is the Goodyear. They have launched a tire as a service to drive the sustainability agenda and increase the life of the tires. Being the responsive, there are many examples are there in terms of how manufacturers are trying to be responsive by driving the servitization agenda and creating a service around that, which is a very important aspect of it. Being a reliable, customers are wanting to be reliable. The technology infusion helps it to make the manufacturing reliable. One example comes, Schneider Electric, a large industrial manufacturer, has created a solution which is power or cooling as a service by the infusion of technology, and that helped the improving the reliability of the product, what they've been selling. Resiliency is very important in the COVID world. I think resiliency has become a buzzword, and many customers are looking at it, how they became resilient, or manufacturers think of resiliency as a very important element. Rolls-Royce is a customer which comes to my mind, where they have adopted they were able to build the solution around that. Reskilling is important as you create a new business model. Reskilling of your people in the manufacturing industry is going to be very, very important. You are required to understand the technology, you are required to the service mindset, and that will help manufacturers. So this is my summary of how 5Rs are going to play a very important role for manufacturing, and servitization is going to play a very important role. Moving along, a brief perspective as I zoom in from an Asia Pac perspective. As we know that manufacturing has shifted to Asia Pac for the large manufacturing companies. Almost 40% of the manufacturing today happens in the Asia Pac area. While the infrastructure and technology and some of the adoption has been slow, Asia Pac companies or the global companies in the Asia Pac market has started making a big impact. It is important to see how the policies, demographics, the younger generation, and technology innovation is helping to drive manufacturers servitization into the Asia Pac industry. Looking long, of course, there are barriers are there. Monetization of the servitization model is still in infancy. Culture and the mindset plays a very important role. Customers are still expecting in this region some of the services which are more standard than the creation of a new business model. Digital maturity of some of the companies are yet to be seen, but I'm very optimistic with the technology like IoT, with 5G, cloud, AR, VR, and analytics with machine learning and artificial intelligence will help us navigate this path very, very significantly. I look forward to see how these technologies will help us drive the innovation agenda and create a servitization model. If I compare with the Western world, the Asia Pac market is yet to pick up fully, but it is gaining momentum. I would like to talk about two examples which are very prominent. They are global companies, but they have made impact into the Asia market. One of them is the leading cleaning and hygiene company, which they have leveraged the power of IoT and the data analytics to launch product to service model. Product is IoT enabled. It has given them a competitive advantage. It has given them the market share. It has also helped their sustainability agenda, and it is provided that outcome as a service for the cleaning consumption they have for their customers. It's a very unique model. It has helped to bring the technology to the service and create a new business model. Looking at the other similar kind of example, which is industrial automotive company, industrial automation company, where they have created reliability care as a service, which have created differentiation in their sales because OEMs lose their revenue because there is no stickiness. Through this model, they were able to offer services, improve the asset reliability, which is a very important element for a high asset industry. And they were able to create a digitally enhanced service product, which was very much liked by their customers, and they are seeing the momentum. So if I look at it from a overall, in summary, as I talked about, I'm very excited to see the future of servitization. Adoption is going to go up, whether it is in a global market, whether it is in Asia Pac market, whether it is in other part of the world. The road ahead has both its challenges and the excitement going together. As the technology infusion comes, services are going to be important. Manufacturers are moving from the product mindset to service mindset, and they're adopting new ways of working. Last but not the least, the culture of the organization change management, and how do you bring services together is going to be the way going forward. So with that, I want to send you thank you and look forward for our interaction in the future. But it was a fantastic session. Thank you so much.
That's great, Ashish. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So I'm going to move us on to Sarah Nicastro, who is a commentator based in North America. Sarah spends an awful lot of her time actually interviewing and carrying out podcasts with manufacturers, with industrialists, looking at services and looking at servitization. And she can't actually be live on Zoom with us today. It's a video that she's prepared for us, with us, just really commentating upon what she has seen in terms of the adoption of servitization, both inside her region and more generally around the globe.
Hello, everyone. Sarah Nicastro, creator of Future of Field Service and Vice President of Customer Advocacy for Service Management at IFS. Happy to be here with you today, talking a little bit about the trends that I'm seeing related to servitization and advanced services here in North America. So in my role, I have the opportunity to talk with leaders, business leaders, service leaders, operational leaders, IT leaders all across the board almost on a day-to-day basis about how they're driving innovation and transformation within their businesses. At Future of Field Service, I host a weekly podcast. I believe we are right around 130 episodes at this point. And the vast majority of those feature interviews with leadership talking about the trends in the industry and how we are moving to use service more strategically. So I spoke at the last Servitization event that the Advanced Services Group put on about the impact I felt COVID was having on how companies were going to embrace servitization. I want to share with you a couple of examples of how we've seen the progress play out in North America in the last year, and then talk a little bit about what I think the focus areas are and what will happen next. So a couple of the companies that I've interviewed for Future of Field Service give a really good example of some of the different ways that servitization and advanced services are being embraced in North America. One example is Philips. I had a conversation with Philips on the podcast that was really, really interesting. One of the points I loved about that conversation was the point of, if you're thinking about moving to outcomes-based service and delivering outcomes, make sure you don't limit your view. So Chris Lafrada from Philips mentioned that, you tend to look at outcomes in a certain area, but be sure you're thinking broadly enough about the challenges and opportunities your customers have and all of the ways you might be able to help them. He also talked quite a bit about the evolution of frontline workers and how they are shifting to be knowledge workers and how everything they're doing related to outcomes-based service is customer-centric. Another example is an interview I did with Schneider Electric, Jerome Soltani, who said that outcomes is the anchor of their 3-year strategy. There's a lot of changes that they're seeing within their customer base that are putting them at a tipping point where servitization just holds a wealth of opportunity. Their customers are facing a lot of challenges related to hiring enough skilled labor to manage the machinery and equipment that Schneider provides. They're needing to focus more efforts on their core business. And with the rise of data and connected assets, they need help with understanding how best to utilize those things. So those needs of their customers are presenting Schneider with a huge opportunity around servitization and outcomes. The final example I'll share with you today is Cox Communications. Cox Communications is looking at, how to take advantage of the fact that they are already in customers' homes and look at how to expand their business into being a complete home service provider. So realizing that their customer journey could be simplified if they were doing more than just one thing while they're on site. So those are just 3 examples of the conversations I've had in the last 6 months or last year that illustrate some of the different ways that servitization and advanced services is playing out here in North America. So when I think about these examples and then I set them against the other end of the spectrum, which is some of the folks I talk with that might be struggling a bit with making as much progress, there are 5 words that come to mind when I think about the state of servitization or advanced services in North America. The first word is awareness. I think that is plentiful. I think there are very few exceptions when it comes to the realization that servitization, outcomes, and advanced services is very much our path forward. So I think that awareness of the value of servitization, the value of delivering outcomes, and really the imperative to move in that direction is there. The second word I think of is clarity. And I think clarity is sort of the first stumbling block for organizations. I think that while the awareness that servitization is important exists, the clarity around what it means to their specific business is sometimes lacking. So not only to the business, but also what it means to your customers. You know, we talk a lot about servitization, outcomes-based service, advanced services. I've used those terms interchangeably just in this session because they really mean very similar things with different contexts for different business types. So there's a lot of buzz around this idea that service is a path to strategic differentiation and growth. And quite frankly, that buzz can be sort of confusing. Knowing that servitization holds opportunity for your business is not the same as defining what servitization means for your business. So I think that one of the things that companies are working on right now is clarity around what this concept and, you know, the acknowledgement that it's super important means for their business specifically. I think that a lot of times companies read some of these buzzwords and think that, you know, maybe they'll just focus a little bit more on service contracts or, you know, increase the efforts that they're putting into aftermarket. And we know that that isn't true servitization. That isn't true innovation. And I think it can take some time for folks to get the right clarity around the path that they need to be on. I had a gentleman on the podcast recently named Dan McClure who talked about why and how we default often to incremental improvement over true innovation. The third word that I think of is identity. So when we look at getting the clarity we need around what servitization means for our business, we begin to realize that it's truly a fundamental culture and operational shift. That means there are layers of change and a lot of hard work. That can be very overwhelming, and it really is changing the identity of the business. I had a gentleman, Scott Weller, on the podcast from Moss Rate Group. They've helped a number of organizations embrace as a service models. And, you know, he spoke a lot about this importance of identity as, you know, almost a first step. So embarking bullishly on this journey without acknowledging the deep-rooted identity that you have and how that needs to evolve is really a recipe for failure. It can totally be done, and it is being done. We saw that in the examples I gave, but you have to understand, you know, the significance of the task that you're taking on and make sure you're addressing that change in identity the right ways. So, you know, when you look at this, it's really a company-wide transformation, not a service transformation, right? We need to make sure we're, you know, not innovating in silos. We need to make sure we're considering, you know, the appropriate value proposition, the go-to-market strategy, and all of those things. The fourth word I think of is trust. I read an article recently by David Meyer of IDC about how Apple has built its empire. He said, brand trust is the foundation which allows Apple to continue to thrive, expanding into adjacent and stretch categories, fueling continued growth and profitability. He talks about how Apple, who started selling products, has morphed into digital services, media, and even electric cars. The point he's making is that the more your customers trust you, the more they want to use your products and your services. I think this word is a very, very important word in our next steps on this journey. I think that the value of trust really can't be overemphasized, and I think we need to consider it in a couple of different ways. Number one, are you looking at this journey from the outside in? So are you embarking on this with your customers in mind? Are you building trust with them by understanding what is truly important and what outcomes they need from you? I think that oftentimes we see this as a huge opportunity, and we maybe start on a path with our own agenda rather than really starting with the key of what outcomes, what experiences, what peace of mind do our customers need, focusing on that and then trusting that the revenue and progression will follow. I also think, though, that we need to consider trust as it relates to our internal stakeholders. I talked earlier about how big of an identity shift this is. And it really, truly is not possible to accomplish this evolution without bringing along and really relying on your frontline workforce. I think that building trust internally on what the vision is for servitization and advanced services, what the role of the frontline will be in that, both now and as we move forward, is super, super important. You need to be able to, create buy-in to get really critical input from your frontline workforce and use that to help you change that identity, build trust with them, and then build trust with your customer base. The fifth and final word that I think of is opportunity. I think that the examples I shared with Philips and Schneider and Cox Communications, those are just a few examples of companies that are really leading the charge. I think we've only scratched the surface of what's possible, of how advanced services are going to be leveraged, and what this will mean to the market, to the companies that provide them, and to all of us. I'm excited to be able to come back, hopefully next year, and share many more examples of customers successfully transforming to deliver outcomes in the way that we know is super powerful. I've been having a lot of conversations recently with companies like Tetra Pak and Bureau Veritas around the intersection between servitization and sustainability. And I think that is a particular area where, we're really just beginning to see how these two things are going to impact one another and evolve. So there's a lot to be excited about. There's so much to learn from your peers. Events like this one are super valuable to, get some light bulb moments from. So really happy to be a part of this event. And I hope you will come take a look at the content we're putting out at futureoffieldservice.com. Thanks so much for having me.
So our final presentation was to be from India, and that a moment ago we'd lost India, but now India's back online. So that's good to hear. So, Ian.
Thank you and good afternoon. My pleasure now to introduce you to Dr. Rajendra Sharma from the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Rajendra is a professor of marketing and an expert in international marketing, sales marketing, and services marketing. So, Rajendra, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think my video is not on. Yeah, struggling with my video, but I think I can go without the video. What do you say?
We can hear you fine. I'm sure the video will catch up.
Yeah,
please
excellent, go ahead. Excellent. So here I go. As you introduced me, it's my pleasure to speak at this prestigious event, Servitization Live. And everything as a service trend from India is what I'll focus on. India is primarily a service-led economy. We can say more than 50% of our GDP is contributed by services. Employment is also about 75% employment is generated by services, and all the new ventures, most of them, 85%, the startups and all, they are also in the services sector. So how everything as a service is a reality and it's visible in India, that is what I'm going to talk to you today. And I'll stick to the timeline. It's a seismic shift that we can see here, and a business model innovation, right from accessories, alphabet A accessories as a service, to buildings as a service, to clothing as a service, to farming as a service, everything, car, device, furniture, everything, software, of course, because India is the capital of IT-enabled services. And that is primarily well known to the entire world. So I think everyone knows that India is all set for the services economy, and the productization of services and also the servitization of the products. These are two important trends that we have in India. Okay, so since services are primarily intangible and we have a phenomenon called productization of services, the same way the products are getting servitized, and as a marketing principle goes, and it's a warfare, either we differentiate or we die. So starting from basic product companies, as there are no pure products and pure services in the world today, Tata Salt, a salt packaged salt company, they have added, consultation that if you have high blood pressure, I would recommend a low sodium salt to you and something like that. Now those kind of possibilities are there. And with that, we can have a lot of possibilities of adding services. Skincare companies also say, if your skin is dry, oily, normal, and according to the hair types, the companies are offering branded service experiences to the people. Lakme, if I talk about companies from India, a brand which is selling beauty as a service, 400 salons, 125 locations, and with academies like Aptech, they have tied up and they are rolling out about 100 Lakme Aptech academies for training of beauty and grooming and launching that as a service. Possibilities galore, times to come, we might have Ariel and Cherry Blossom. Cherry Blossom is a brand of shoe polish. So we can have like ATMs, shoe polishing stations, or a branded detergent launching laundry as a service and things like that. So basically, why is it that all this is happening? There are examples because millennials and Generation Z, they prioritize experiences over the ownership, and the adrenaline rush without any ties, okay, is what is leading to a phenomenon called transient consumers. And those consumers are basically making it happen that, we have services coming up like a curative marketing, solving customers' problems profitably. I'll talk about certain examples from India. Asian Paints is a leading paint company which used to sell paint, but from paint, they have moved away to, charging per square feet, preparing the surface for painting, offering warranty and guarantee, and solving all the problems of finding a painter and then buying paint and then going through the hassles of getting their home painted. And the same company using a toll-free number, and having their 90% of the calls converted into sales, is now moving into renovating homes. Asian Paints, beautiful homes. So even the branding is changing. So in the brand name, earlier they had Asian Paints, but now it's called AP Beautiful Homes. And during this pandemic, they are also launching certain servitized models like San Assure, which is about sanitizing the workplaces as well as homes, institutions. And they have wood solutions, waterproofing solutions, and whatnot. Another company from Ahmedabad, it's a Sera Sanitary Ware, and this company is not just confined to sanitary ware, but they are into bathroom improvement services. And they are planning a national launch. They redo the entire bathroom within just a week. Okay, they offer 3D visualization, renovation, entire re-rolling of the bathrooms, including fixing lights and geysers and things like that. Cement companies like Ambuja Ultratech in India, they are offering one-stop solutions, ready-mix concrete, construction services, architectural services, mason training, financial services, and a whole lot of services. So I think cement is moving into entire construction as a service. Okay, we already know about buildings as a service. There are even startups like Hungry Brain is into educating parents about how to parent these young babies, toddlers, and infants for raising them as a smart kids later on. So the company is not just selling flashcards, but programs, subscription-based programs, parent education sessions, webinars, which have been monetized, and the parents become the first teachers of the babies because the brain develops the maximum during the first 3-4 years of the child's birth. Now, these kind of models are there in India. It was glad to hear about Goodyear, and we know about Michelin tires, how they have done in Europe, basically the buses and the truck tires, selling fleet solutions and things like that. Interestingly, in India too, companies like CH tires, etc., they are selling per kilometer, per month, or per week kind of models. And even for the cars and passenger, the private vehicles, RFID enabled tires for the cars is the future, and probably all the tire manufacturers are going to embrace and have those kind of RFIDs into the tires. Gadgets, Lenovo, Samsung, there are companies which say that, oh, try now, you can purchase later. Sub rent karo. Chartered is a bicycle renting company in my vicinity, and people have the app and you can You need not buy it. They have made buying of the bicycles redundant. I worked with a company called Eureka Forbes, which is into consumer durables, cleanliness and hygiene products. But from products, they are moved to cleaning solutions, hygiene solutions, sanitization solutions. They are maintaining cleanliness at Indian railway platforms and railway coaches. Not only that, even police stations and high traffic locations. They offer institutions and offices also facility management and cleanliness solutions. Furlenco, Rento, Mojo, these kind of companies, they offer furnitures on rent and all. So these are, friends, some of the kinds of models which are prevailing in India. And if I talk about, why is it moving, then the fact is that it's all about creating value, communicating value, and delivering that value. Okay, and this is happening through servitization. Servitization delivers that value. And then, the way forward is through predictive analytics, remote communication, mobile platforms, and, the companies which are popular abroad, GE, training in partnership TV and those kinds of things, they are already here. Caterpillar's cash, CSA's customer service agreements and those kinds of things. I will not talk much about that because, in Advanced Services Group, a lot of research is being, taking place on manu service and increasing the dependence of industrial manufacturing on services. But friends, India is a unique example of an economy leapfrogging the traditional model of economic evolution from the primary agricultural sector to the services sector, even when the industry sector is not much developed. So here the subscription payment models, they help the farmers overcome the budget constraints. Even small businesses can adopt robust modern services like software as solution and things like that, because it reduces the TCO, total cost of ownership over time. Okay, agri-tech companies, I shared an article with Claire, and I there talked about the fact that agri-tech is facilitating farming as a service. Yeah, the farmers can have flexible payment schedules, less operational risk. They don't have to worry about equipment breakdown and things like that. And the labor issues are a problem, despite the fact that we are the second most populous country in the world. But the mechanization of farming is the key, but the land holdings are so small that a small farmer cannot afford this. It's a costly affair to even own tractors and farm equipments. So since the farmers require one-stop solution, credit, and pay only during the harvest season, the fact is that agriculture for digital agriculture is a way forward for doing well by doing good. Yeah, so this kind of a model brings a lot of companies here in India which can pay per use, and the agri-tech companies, the players like Oxen, Agribolo, they are getting the farmers rid of the money lenders and intermediaries who control the agricultural sector here. Okay, so the availability of cold chains, and there are companies like Mahindra and Mahindra in India. Okay, they are operating countrywide. So they have a platform, they have an app, toll free again, and a mobile app where the tractors and the farm equipment owners, they can offer their services to the farmers at large. And basically these problems of the food scarcity, etc., are getting solved. So if I quickly say what is facilitating servitization trends in India, I would quickly wrap up by saying that it's experience or ownership, hassle-free services, no downtime for the users, and the buyers and the customers, they can stick to the knitting, they can do what they are good at, no ties, no commitments, and customers can switch if the brand is not offering you that delight or customer satisfaction. And even in case of occasional use products like power generator sets and construction equipment, servitization is in. The take, make, and the waste-based designs are unsustainable. So servitization is the solution. It is affordable. It offers overall value. And finally, I would say that it's easy and accessible, but it's also fast and flexible because companies are offering it that way. Okay, so friends, this is what I wanted to quickly share, and I'm so sorry for the video thing. And last minute, I was facing some joining problems. Okay, but I can only say that India, though, has a lot of servitization challenges, like selling, how to sell services and things like that. But that's because services are unique, and the challenges are getting addressed through good human resource management and proper processes, systems, and operations. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Sorry for the video that you couldn't see.
Thank you, Rashid. So, when we created this session, what we wanted to do, we wanted to give a sense of what was actually happening with servitization around the globe. And we very much wanted to do that by bringing together people actually sitting inside that region. And that's what we've done over this first session this morning. And we've also complemented that summary with insights from the technology sector, insights from manufacturers themselves. And to draw it to a conclusion, I would say that quite clearly the language does change as we look at servitization around the world. It's slightly different language in different countries. Some people will talk about a concept in a slightly different way. But it is quite evident that servitization has got this international profile. And in some instances, when you look at what's happening in some regions, like the Nordics, for example, you can see that their adoption of servitization very much outpaces what's happening inside the UK. The language is an issue, and we find that both within our own country, within the academic community, and inside the industrial community. And I think to some extent, you've seen that played out when you've listened to some of the commentaries which have been coming in. You can't, for example, sell servitization. And yet you will go to conferences and you will hear people talking about selling servitization. Servitization is the process, the transformation process, as a manufacturing company or a company which is predominantly based upon products, innovates its capabilities to compete through services and products alone. And it's really down to what we talked about at the very beginning. It's about an expansion of the manufacturing firm from a focus on just making it and moving it, to also capturing value as the customer uses it, and indeed being rewarded as the customer gets the outcomes from actually using it. And this move towards servitization does have these benefits that the speakers have spoke about, whether it's about the growth of the organization, or whether it's about sustainability, or whether it's about resilience, whether it's about just dealing with some of those broader challenges that we face in society. And we'll often talk about different services, and you see that coming out in the presentations that you've heard. We will go to conferences and we will hear manufacturers talk about building revenues through spare parts type services. And of course, if we want to take a short-term look at servitization, that is a process of servitization. We're building revenues through services. But selling spare parts really is a reflection on that manufacturer perhaps not appreciating that spare parts are a pain to the customer. The fact that the product needs to be maintained, the fact that the product needs to be repaired, the fact that the customer has to dedicate energy to being concerned about the uptime and utilization of that asset is a pain. That the true outcome, the outcome which is of most value for that customer is when the customer doesn't have to worry about that asset, that the customer gets the outcomes that enable that customer to be successful in their own business. The process of servitization is about that breadth, and the services which really enable that to happen to its fullest extent are those outcome-based type business models, outcome-based type services. When you listen to the commentaries which have been coming in from around the world, you see some really quite common challenges across those countries, across those regions. The challenge of organizational change, and you heard it with Mark's talk earlier today, the challenge of actually aligning people inside the organization from that thinking about making it and moving it to also embracing the using it. Being able to speak the language of the pains of the customer. Organizational change is perhaps one of the biggest challenges, but one of the biggest opportunities is the data and the data that the product enables, and the data which we think about perhaps from a services perspective of giving us insights about where the product is and how it's being used so we can organize field service operations. But also to beyond that, to how the data can help us to understand the risks that we actually face in terms of delivering outcome-based business models, and how that can help us then with perhaps what is one of the third challenge areas, which is the financing, bringing together the financing and the contracts which support the outcome-based business model. The data that we're capturing around the product can enable that, but yet we tend to think about it more from the perspective of the field service and field service operations. So the financing is perhaps that third challenge that you were seeing coming through. And perhaps the fourth challenge that you were seeing coming through from the various talks was perhaps the role of the manufacturing business within the broader value network or ecosystem, call it what you may, or supply chain, call it what you may. The point that to deliver some more of these more advanced services, what you find is that customer has to operate, that manufacturer has to operate in partnership with customers, with dealers, with distributors, with financiers, with technology vendors. And some of those organizations are true partners and can enable to accelerate the manufacturer to deliver those new business models. Some are also potential predators, and managing that value network is one of the big challenges. So when we look around the globe, we see this adoption of servitization. We see in this growing footprint, albeit the language of differences, the way that people talk about it, but it's nevertheless, it's there, it's everywhere. And we face common challenges, and the challenges around data, the organization, the financing, the value networks, they're all challenges which have to be resolved. What we're going to do now is that we're going to, this afternoon, spend a little bit more time just looking at some of this data about what we're seeing around the world, before moving into a session which is looking at actually how do you go through the process of thinking about the business model and thinking about some of those challenges around finance, organization, data, etc., value network, and pulling it all together as a business model for an organization. And then tomorrow and on Wednesday, we'll be spending more time going through other presentations which are showing how people have got around some of these challenges. So thank you for your patience and in helping us to go through this international roundup. And I'll now hand over to Ian to perhaps announce what's maybe the most important slide of the morning.
Thank you, Tim. Well, believe it or not, we have managed to get to this point within a minute of where we expected to be. So thank you for all the online and the in-person delegates for joining us this morning. I've got the great pleasure of announcing lunch down in the foyer. We will be back in this room for 1:45 p.m. to listen to Chris Oldland from Field Service News. So please take time to get some refreshments, network a nice 2-meter distance if at all possible. And just remember that all the delegates have got opportunities to look at all the screens, the showcases and the blueprints that we have around the room today, and all the exhibits and the exhibitors that are there to tell you about their own journey. So thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.